Games people play. Book by Eric Berne. Detailed summary. Chapter 1: The Social Scene. In this chapter, Eric Berne introduces the concept of the social scene and explains how it shapes our interactions with others. The social scene refers to the social environment in which we live, including the cultural norms, social hierarchies, and expectations that influence our behavior. Berne argues that the social scene creates a set of rules or scripts that people follow when interacting with each other. These scripts dictate how people should behave in different social situations, such as at work, in public, or with friends and family. Berne also introduces the concept of ego states, which are the different aspects of a person's personality that come into play during social interactions. These ego states include the parent, adult, and child states, which reflect different levels of authority, knowledge, and emotional expression. According to Berne, people tend to fall into certain ego states depending on the social situation and the roles they are playing. For example, a person may take on a parental role in a work situation, an adult role when making rational decisions, or a child role when seeking emotional support. Berne also discusses the concept of transactions, which are the exchanges that occur between people during social interactions. Transactions can be either complementary, where one person responds to the other in a way that reinforces their ego state, or crossed, where the response is unexpected or conflicts with the other person's ego state. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that social interactions are shaped by the social scene and the scripts and ego states that it creates. By understanding these dynamics, people can better navigate social situations and communicate effectively with others. Chapter 2: Ego States. In this chapter, Berne provides a detailed explanation of the concept of ego states. Ego states are the different parts of an individual's personality that come into play during social interactions. Berne identifies three primary ego states: parent, adult, and child. The parent ego state represents the internalization of attitudes and behaviors learned from parental figures, such as authority figures or caregivers. The parent ego state can be divided into two subcategories: nurturing parent and critical parent. Nurturing parent represents the caring and supportive aspects of a parent, while critical parent represents the strict and judgmental aspects. The adult ego state represents rational thinking, decision-making, and problem-solving based on current reality. It is characterized by objective thinking and the ability to evaluate information objectively. The child ego state represents emotions, feelings, and behaviors learned in childhood. It can be divided into two subcategories: adapted child and free child. The adapted child represents the internalization of social norms and behaviors learned from authority figures, while the free child represents spontaneous and uninhibited emotions and behaviors. Berne explains that individuals can shift between these different ego states depending on the social situation and the roles they are playing. He also notes that individuals may have preferred ego states that they tend to rely on more heavily. The importance of ego states lies in the fact that they shape an individual's thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, and can influence the outcomes of social interactions. By understanding their own ego states and those of others, individuals can better navigate social situations and communicate effectively. Chapter 3: Transactions. In this chapter, Berne introduces the concept of transactions, which are the basic units of social interaction. Transactions occur whenever one person communicates with another, either verbally or non-verbally. Berne argues that transactions can be analyzed in terms of the ego states of the people involved. Berne identifies three types of transactions: complementary, crossed, and ulterior. Complementary transactions occur when one person responds to another in a way that reinforces their ego state. For example, if a person speaks to another in a nurturing, parental tone, and the other person responds in a childlike, dependent manner, then a complementary transaction has taken place. Cross transactions occur when a person responds in a way that is unexpected or conflicts with the ego state of the other person. For example, if a person speaks to another in a parental tone, but the other person responds in an adult, rational manner, then a cross transaction has taken place. Ulterior transactions occur when a person has a hidden agenda or motive behind their communication. For example, if a person asks another for help but really wants attention or sympathy, then an ulterior transaction has taken place. Berne also explains the concept of strokes, which are units of recognition, attention, or responsiveness given to another person. Strokes can be positive or negative, and Berne argues that people crave strokes and will go to great lengths to get them. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that transactions are the basic building blocks of social interaction, and they can be analyzed in terms of the ego states of the people involved. By understanding the different types of transactions and strokes, individuals can better navigate social situations and communicate effectively with others. Chapter 4: Time Structuring. In this chapter, Berne introduces the concept of time structuring, which refers to the ways in which people organize their time and use it to fulfill their psychological needs. Berne argues that people have a variety of time structures, which can be analyzed in terms of the ego states that they represent. Berne identifies four primary time structures: withdrawal, rituals, pastimes, and games. Withdrawal refers to the act of isolating oneself from others and engaging in solitary activities. Rituals are repetitive behaviors that are performed for symbolic or psychological reasons. Pastimes are activities that are done for pleasure and enjoyment. Games are complex social interactions that are played for psychological reasons. Berne argues that games are the most important type of time structure because they provide a way for people to fulfill their psychological needs through social interaction. Games are played according to a set of implicit or explicit rules, and they involve roles that people play to fulfill their ego needs. Berne provides several examples of games, such as Why Don't You Yes, But, If It Weren't For You, and Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch. Berne also discusses the concept of time binding, which refers to the ways in which people use the past and the future to fulfill their psychological needs. Berne argues that people can use the past to fulfill their needs for nurturing and structure, while they can use the future to fulfill their needs for challenge and achievement. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that people use different time structures to fulfill their psychological needs, and games are the most important type of time structure because they provide a way for people to fulfill their needs through social interaction. By understanding the different time structures and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can better understand their own behavior and the behavior of others in social situations. Chapter 5: Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the concept of games, which he defines as a series of transactions progressing to a well-defined, predictable outcome. Berne argues that games are a way for people to fulfill their psychological needs through social interaction, but they often involve hidden agendas and unconscious motivations. Berne identifies several key components of games, including the players, the rules, the roles, the scripts, and the payoffs. Players are the people who participate in the game, while rules are the implicit or explicit guidelines that govern the game. Roles are the psychological positions that players adopt during the game, while scripts are the implicit or explicit storylines that players follow. Payoffs are the psychological rewards that players receive from participating in the game. Berne provides several examples of games, including Kick Me, Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch, and Let's You and Him Fight. He also identifies the ego needs that games fulfill, such as recognition, stimulation, and autonomy. Berne argues that games are a way for people to fulfill their psychological needs, but they can also be harmful if they become too entrenched in people's personalities and relationships. Berne provides several suggestions for how to deal with games, including recognizing when they are being played, confronting the players, and finding alternative ways to fulfill psychological needs. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that games are a way for people to fulfill their psychological needs through social interaction, but they often involve hidden agendas and unconscious motivations. By understanding the components of games and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can better navigate social situations and communicate effectively with others. Chapter 6: The Interpersonal Underworld. In this chapter, Berne discusses the interpersonal underworld, which refers to the hidden, often negative aspects of social interaction that are not typically discussed openly. Berne argues that people often engage in negative interactions such as criticizing, blaming, and attacking each other, and that these interactions are often driven by hidden agendas and unconscious motivations. Berne identifies several types of negative interactions, which he calls rackets. Rackets are patterns of behavior that people use to manipulate others and fulfill their own psychological needs. Berne argues that rackets are a way for people to avoid intimacy and maintain their own sense of superiority. Berne provides several examples of rackets, including "Look how hard I've tried, ain't it awful," and "If it weren't for you." He also identifies the ways in which people use rackets to fulfill their ego needs, such as attention, stimulation, and reassurance. Berne argues that the interpersonal underworld can be difficult to navigate because people are often unaware of their own rackets and the rackets of others. However, he suggests that by understanding the psychological motivations behind negative interactions, individuals can learn to recognize and avoid them. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that the interpersonal underworld is a hidden, negative aspect of social interaction that is driven by hidden agendas and unconscious motivations. By understanding the concept of rackets and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can better navigate negative interactions and communicate effectively with others. Chapter 7: Sexual Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the role of sex in interpersonal relationships and argues that sexual behavior can often be viewed as a type of game that people play. Berne describes a variety of sexual games, which he defines as a series of interactions between two or more people that follow a predictable pattern and involve a payoff for one or more players. Berne notes that sexual games can be highly complex and can involve a variety of psychological motivations, including the desire for power, control, and intimacy. He identifies several common sexual games, including Rappo, Frigid Woman, and Let's You and Him Make Love. Berne also discusses the different types of transactions that occurred during sexual games, including body language, sexual propositions, and seduction. He argues that these transactions are often driven by hidden psychological needs and motivations. Berne emphasizes that sexual games can be harmful to individuals and to relationships if they are not played consciously and with awareness of the underlying psychological motivations. He suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding their own sexual games and motivations, as well as those of their partners. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that sexual behavior can often be viewed as a type of game that people play, driven by complex psychological motivations. By understanding the concept of sexual games and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can better navigate sexual interactions and communicate effectively with partners. Chapter 8: Marital Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the role of games in marital relationships, arguing that many marital conflicts can be understood as the result of the different games that partners play with each other. Berne defines a game as a series of transactions which result in a payoff for both or all players. Berne identifies several common marital games, including If It Weren't For You, Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch, and Let's Pull a Fast One on Joey. He describes the different roles that partners may take in these games, such as the persecutor, rescuer, and victim. Berne also discusses the ways in which partners may use strokes, or units of recognition, to manipulate each other during marital games. He notes that partners may withhold or give strokes as a way of controlling or punishing each other. Berne emphasizes that marital games can be harmful to relationships if they are not played consciously and with awareness of the underlying psychological motivations. He suggests that partners can benefit from understanding their own and their partner's games and motivations, as well as working to develop open and honest communication. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that many marital conflicts can be understood as the result of the different games that partners play with each other. By understanding the concept of marital games and the psychological needs they fulfill, partners can better navigate conflicts and develop healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Chapter 9: Party Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the role of games in social gatherings and parties. He argues that social gatherings often involve a variety of games, which can be played for a variety of reasons, such as social recognition, power, and intimacy. Berne identifies several common party games, including Alcoholic, Ain't It Awful, and Gossip. He describes the different roles that participants may take in these games, such as the persecutor, rescuer, and victim. Berne also discusses the different types of transactions that occurred during party games, including ritualistic greetings, compliments, and introductions. He notes that these transactions can be highly symbolic and can be used to establish social hierarchy and power dynamics. Berne emphasizes that party games can be harmful to individuals and to social relationships if they are not played consciously and with awareness of the underlying psychological motivations. He suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding their own party games and motivations, as well as those of their social circle, in order to navigate social interactions more effectively and avoid harmful power dynamics. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that social gatherings and parties often involve a variety of games, driven by complex psychological motivations. By understanding the concept of party games and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can better navigate social interactions and avoid harmful power dynamics. Chapter 10: Consulting Room Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the role of games in psychotherapy and other forms of counseling. He argues that many clients come to therapy with unconscious motivations to play games, often as a way of fulfilling deep-seated psychological needs. Berne identifies several common consulting room games, including Now I've Got You, You Son of a Bitch, Why Don't You, Yes, But, and Wooden Leg. He describes the different roles that clients and therapists may take in these games, such as the persecutor, rescuer, and victim. Berne also discusses the ways in which clients may use script messages or preconceived ideas about how they should act in certain situations to manipulate their therapists during counseling sessions. He notes that therapists may also have their own script messages that influence their interactions with clients. Berne emphasizes that therapy can be beneficial for clients if they are able to recognize and understand their own consulting room games and motivations. He suggests that therapists can also benefit from understanding the concept of consulting room games and the psychological needs they fulfill, as well as working to develop open and honest communication with their clients. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that many clients come to therapy with unconscious motivations to play games, often as a way of fulfilling deep-seated psychological needs. By understanding the concept of consulting room games and the psychological motivations that drive them, both clients and therapists can navigate therapy sessions more effectively and work toward healthier, more fulfilling lives. Chapter 11: Good Games. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the concept of good games, or games that are played consciously and with the awareness of all participants. He argues that good games can be a healthy and positive way to fulfill psychological needs and build social connections. Berne identifies several characteristics of good games, including the fact that they are played with full awareness and consent, that they have clear rules and boundaries, and that they are played for the enjoyment of all participants. He notes that good games can be used to build intimacy, social recognition, and a sense of accomplishment. Berne also discusses the different types of good games, including creative games, athletic games, and intellectual games. He notes that each type of game can fulfill different psychological needs and that individuals may have different preferences for the types of good games they enjoy playing. Berne emphasizes that good games can be a valuable part of a healthy, fulfilling life, but that individuals must be conscious and intentional about the games they play. He suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding their own psychological motivations for playing games, as well as the motivations of their social circle, in order to build stronger social connections and avoid harmful power dynamics. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that good games, played consciously and with awareness, can be a healthy and positive way to fulfill psychological needs and build social connections. By understanding the concept of good games and the psychological needs they fulfill, individuals can navigate social interactions more effectively and build healthier, more fulfilling lives. Chapter 12: Autonomy. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the concept of autonomy, or the ability of an individual to exercise their own free will and make choices based on their own desires and preferences. He argues that autonomy is a fundamental human need and that individuals may engage in games in order to gain or maintain their autonomy. Berne identifies several different ways in which autonomy can be threatened or undermined, including through manipulation, coercion, or social pressure. He notes that individuals may respond to these threats by engaging in games such as Ain't It Awful, in order to maintain their autonomy and assert their own needs and desires. Berne also discusses the importance of balancing autonomy with social connectedness, noting that individuals must find a balance between asserting their own needs and desires and recognizing the needs and desires of others. He suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding their own psychological motivations for seeking autonomy, as well as the motivations of others, in order to build stronger social connections and avoid harmful power dynamics. Berne emphasizes that individuals can develop their autonomy by recognizing their own psychological needs and desires, learning to assert themselves effectively, and developing healthy social connections. He suggests that therapy can be a valuable tool for individuals seeking to build their autonomy and develop healthier, more fulfilling lives. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that autonomy is a fundamental human need and that individuals may engage in games in order to gain or maintain their autonomy. By understanding the concept of autonomy and the psychological needs it fulfills, individuals can navigate social interactions more effectively and build healthier, more fulfilling lives. Chapter 13: Intimacy. In this chapter, Berne focuses on the concept of intimacy, or the sense of emotional closeness and connection between individuals. He argues that intimacy is a fundamental human need and that individuals may engage in games in order to seek or maintain intimacy. Berne identifies several different ways in which intimacy can be threatened or undermined, including through fear of rejection, fear of loss, or fear of engulfment. He notes that individuals may respond to these threats by engaging in games, such as "why don't you yes but," in order to protect themselves from emotional vulnerability. Berne also discusses the importance of balancing intimacy with autonomy, noting that individuals must find a balance between building emotional connections with others and maintaining their own sense of free will and independence. He suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding their own psychological motivations for seeking intimacy, as well as the motivations of others, in order to build stronger emotional connections and avoid harmful power dynamics. Berne emphasizes that individuals can develop intimacy by recognizing their own emotional needs and desires, learning to communicate effectively, and developing healthy emotional connections. He suggests that therapy can be a valuable tool for individuals seeking to build intimacy and develop healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that intimacy is a fundamental human need and that individuals may engage in games in order to seek or maintain intimacy. By understanding the concept of intimacy and the psychological needs it fulfills, individuals can navigate social interactions more effectively and build healthier, more fulfilling emotional connections. Chapter 14: Society. In this chapter, Berne discusses the role of society in shaping human behavior and interactions. He argues that social norms and expectations often influence the games that individuals play and the ways in which they relate to one another. Berne notes that society can both facilitate and inhibit healthy social interactions. On the one hand, social norms and institutions can provide structure and support for individuals, helping to foster healthy relationships and a sense of community. On the other hand, societal pressures can also contribute to harmful power dynamics and prevent individuals from expressing their own needs and desires. Berne suggests that individuals can benefit from understanding the ways in which society shapes their interactions and from developing the skills and knowledge needed to navigate social norms and expectations effectively. He also emphasizes the importance of social change and the need to challenge harmful power dynamics and promote greater equity and justice in society. Berne concludes the book by calling on readers to reflect on their own social interactions and to work towards building healthier, more fulfilling relationships with others. He suggests that individuals can benefit from the insights provided by transactional analysis and from the skills and strategies needed to identify and overcome harmful patterns of behavior. Overall, the main idea of this chapter is that society plays a significant role in shaping human behavior and interactions. By understanding the ways in which society influences their interactions, individuals can work towards building healthier, more fulfilling relationships and promoting greater social change and justice.